10th of July 2023. In this news flash, I'm going to talk about Eskom, but this should actually be a what a fuck moment. But the reality is that it is news. I have made my opinion clear about the load shedding in many of my Skidmarks. I'm of the opinion, and that has been my opinion for a long time, that the load shedding is politically manipulated to manipulate us, the consumers. And I have mentioned it to a few people, and a lot of them looked at me as if I'm from outer space. But about 2 weeks ago, somebody added me to a WhatsApp group that is for BRICS and for the BRICS conference and all of that. And I can't even remember who placed me into that group and how I landed in that group. But I watched the group for about a day, and then I started asking questions there. And a lot of the questions got the standard Twitter, Facebook type of keyboard warrior responses. And it was people that was clueless. But they tried to be big there in the BRICS group. And I asked a question, and a guy replied to me privately, and he said, I think it's better that we discuss this outside the group, because we're going to get a lot of heat in that group with this. And I have to say it because this is the country that we live in and the environment that we are all in. It was a black guy. And I said, okay. And we started talking. And obviously, we bumped heads for a few posts. And then I said to him, look, if me and you need to put our points on the table and explain our positions, we have to focus on it, that we retain respect at all the time. I respect your opinions, you respect my opinions, we discuss the opinions, and then we come to a conclusion. And he threw me a thumbs up. And I thought, okay. And the followers of my channel, you understand me, you know that I come out with crazy questions and things like that. But I'm a guy that likes to ask questions on which the answer can only be yes or no. And if I ask a question like that and you start explaining, then I realize, then I jump to the conclusion that you are trying to bullshit me. But me and my friend, and I'm going to call him Mr. X, and I'm doing it for a specific reason, for his protection, because during our conversations, he started sharing things with me that is not something that is shared openly. So out of respect, I'm going to call him Mr. X. And over the following days, our relationship developed rapidly. And by within a week's time, we were chatting like we were old friends. And I'm going to do a Skidmark on it again, on focusing on this, because what happened here in this discussion between me and Mr. X confirmed my position that we are allowing racism and bullshit like that to destroy our opportunities of respectful coexistence in South Africa. But be it as it may, I started asking him questions about Eskom, and I told him what my theories were. Now I'm going to read a tweet, a response to one of my questions to you, so that you just get an idea of the type of relationship that we have. So I asked him a question and he responded like this. Oom Colleen, ek moet sê, I have a lot of respect for your wisdom and love for humanity. I'm a proud firstborn son of a proud man born out of a warrior nation of Batlokwa, and equally proud firstborn of a proud, intelligent, beautiful Xhosa woman who became my first teacher in life and inducted me into family and educated me of Ubuntu. I'm a big brother to 3 younger siblings, 2 sisters and a younger brother. The proud entrepreneurial warrior Tlokwa father of mine was born just 3 years before you, and his beautiful wife just about 6 months after him. This makes me, or puts me, in the age group of your sons, daughters, nephews and nieces. I truly appreciate your patience, love and time to share your wisdom with me and allow me to share my views too. Now, I'm reading you this so that you can understand the relationship between me and Mr. X. So next he shares with me this. Economic Intervention Forum of South Africa, IFSA. And he types a message. He mentioned to me something about what they have achieved already, and I said to him, great news, makes a moose a difference when merit is in control and not a lot of stupid deployed cadres. And then he says to me, this is what me and a group of engineers, scientists, including nuclear scientists and economic plus other related professionals have been doing since January. We have been instrumental in the changing of the narrative from the shit green agenda back to coal. We have been a great source of factual info to Gwede, hence his position changed since January and strong balls. And then I just said to him that the old Eskom board in the old days were 6 people, 5 engineers and an accountant, and he said, no, I didn't know. I admire what visionary Smuts and Van der Bijl did in South Africa for South Africa. Now I'm sharing this with you that you can understand the relationship we have and the level on which we are communicating. And then he gave me this. We formed an organization of brilliant scientists and engineers in January, and I'm proud to say that we have managed to change the narrative and sway many ANC and EFF politicians in particular and ministers, hence Gwede's balls and the ANC next silent revolt against Cyril. We are winning. Yes, he has taken the money and he is bribing a lot of people like crazy to save his skin and deliver to his masters, for he has no other option. He has already registered NTC as part of the privatization plan of Eskom under what they call unbundling and repurposing of some bullshit like that. Now, I have said it, and I've said it in the Skidmark incidentally that I published last night, that it is my opinion that Cyril's instruction is to get Eskom privatized at all costs, because that will be the precursor to the South African Maidan and the destruction of the South African Republic. And then he shares this with me. Now take note, this is from the group executive of Eskom. Congratulations Letabo, congratulations to Karabo Rakogela at the Letabo team who are currently running the station at an EAF of 98.5% and supporting the ancillary services. You have done us proud. You must take note of that percentage, 98.5. Letaba Power Station achieves 98.5% EAF. Private monopoly capital is probably sweating over these bad news for them. On the 28th, 29th of January, we at the Economic Intervention Forum of South Africa drew a line in the sand, declared load shedding the enemy of the people as we gathered at the Eskom National Conference. What followed after was a litany of media interviews, articles and direct liaison with different members of national legislature and parliament. We said we want load shedding completely eradicated by prioritizing the current Eskom coal fleet. We put it here. From 1 November to 2023, there should never be load shedding ever again in South Africa. Once we are done with load shedding, we will embark on gunning for Eskom to have a consistent 6,000 megawatt electricity surplus. Once that will be achieved, we will get Eskom to aim to half the current electricity tariffs of the country so that every household will pay half for electricity of what is currently paying at the moment. This we will do. Now, this is important to take note of. These guys are focused on the coal fleet. They started in January, and in June, Letaba reaches 98.5% EAF. Now, I tried to get details of what was done there at Letaba, but I couldn't. Then we get this. NERSA to begin unbundling Eskom. After 4-year delay, the National Energy Regulator of South Africa will in April kick off President Cyril Ramaphosa's plan to unbundle Eskom into 3 departments. And I spoke about that specifically in my Skidmark of last night. So, Cyril has put the machinery on the go to unbundle Eskom for privatization. Mr. X and his friends are part of the grouping that wants Eskom to stay part of the government, a national asset, a state asset, not privatized. And it's important that you take note of that. And I mentioned to Mr. X that a friend of mine and me were discussing this whole thing around my theory of Cyril will sell Eskom to private oligarchs, and then after that they're going to crash the Republic, because the Americans only want the Cape for the Cape Sea route. They're not interested in the rest of the country. But in a Maidan situation, and the Republic splits into 6, 8, 9, 14 smaller republics, the Americans are only interested in the Cape. The rest of the country, all those independent republics, they will need power. And my friend said, the grid is the #1 priority, because that is going to make it possible to control all the pieces, because they all need power. Power stations is positioned at places, but renewables can be erected anywhere. So the grid, he said to me, the grid is the #1 priority. And then Mr. X responded, hence they are gunning for transmission. Your Eskom friend is on the money. So, look again, NERSA to begin unbundling Eskom. And it's three portions: generation, transmission, and distribution. Now, we all know that about 2 weeks ago, Gwede Mantashe refused to sign that agreement that European brought down here to South Africa to sign. And you must not forget, it has been published. America and Europe has given Cyril an obscene amount of money for this fucking green plan, and we all know that green plan is a balls up. This Minister of Electricity, he has already said it last week, that it's a major issue. They're complaining now that the people that are putting up inverters and batteries are putting a hell of a lot of strain on the grid once the load shedding comes back to an area and all those batteries needs to be charged. The second thing is, they have a problem with these solar farms. Because, take for an example, a solar farm can supply 5,000 megawatt to the grid. And they connect up to the grid. Now you must understand, this grid must stay in balance and synchronized. And then, all of us know that, a cloud moves in front of the sun, and that 5,000 megawatt solar plant all of a sudden just deliver 1,000 watt. And it happens in seconds. And that can destabilize the grid. So it's difficult. And these are things that the people experienced in Europe, and that's why Germany is back onto coal. They experience it there. But these people here, the green maniacs under the leadership of Ramaphosa, they don't pay attention to that because they're getting shitloads of money. I said it in one of my Skidmarks last year, when I was talking about this load shedding and the data. I said the thing that disturbed me most was Cyril went to visit Biden. Prior to that, the rate was 100% Eskom and coal. Cyril comes back from Biden with 500 million, billion, fuck knows what, how many dollars. And within a week, the writer comes out with a shit of converting Komati to solar. Shutting down Komati power station and putting solar on the premises. And I thought to myself, what the fuck is that? A week ago, this man was solid on coal. And now all of a sudden, he's gone green. But we all know where that went. So, and then we get this. And I'm not going to read the whole article. I'm just going to read you excerpts. And it's from a guy with the name of Mtunzi Alutuli. An analysis of the true cost of renewable power. Eskom and the Office of the Minister of Electricity recently announced that the power utility would be spending 210 billion rand to build transmission lines, which will connect the remote power generating solar plants and wind farms located in parts of the Northern and Western Cape. Because the problem there, they started building those massive solar plants there in the Karoo. But the grid cannot take the power from them because that grid lines running there is running at 100% capacity. Now listen at this obscene amount of money they would have spent to build extra power lines. This is a huge cost simply to connect renewables. The price tag is not to generate electricity, which highlights the real cost of renewables to the South African economy. 210 billion rand needs to be spent, but it will not generate 1 megawatt. And then he says, at the outset, I have to mention that I, together with many of my colleagues who share the opinions contained herein, are not climate denialists. Neither are we anti-renewables. On the contrary, we always welcome the use of new viable technologies because we are engineers. We are trained to think this way. We are also technology neutral. Our principle is that policies and solutions to our energy problems have to make technical, economic, social and environmental sense. Renewable energy technologies have their place and appropriate application in South Africa's energy mix. However, they are currently being deployed far too aggressively and irresponsibly in South Africa. This will have major repercussions for our country, as demonstrated below. One can build 2 conventional 6-pack power stations with 210 billion if one plans and executes those projects efficiently. But instead of building power generation capacity, we are building costly transmission lines. Right now, our country needs electricity, megawatts, not transmission lines. What's worse is that the government wants to build these transmission lines to connect solar and wind plants that have a capacity factor that range from 25 to 32%. Keep in mind, Letabo reached 98%. A capacity factor is the ratio of the energy that was actually produced by a solar or wind plant to the amount of energy that plant could have produced in a specified time period given the plant's rated output power. It is often measured over a period of 1 year, and 25% and 30% are indeed very low capacity factors, sadly. And the Europeans experienced this, and Putin warned them about this. The financial equivalent of a capacity factor is asset utilization, and as we know, a low asset utilization factor means a low return on investment. It makes absolutely no sense for the government and Eskom to spend 210 billion rand on transmission lines that will be used for only 25% of the time. It is also a waste of much needed financial resources that could be used to create jobs, facilitate the establishment of real businesses that will contribute towards growing the economy. Our policy makers are so deep into this renewable gospel that they can't even see, or perhaps they do see but ignore, the glaringly obvious paradoxes in their own policies. 210 billion is a lot of money. For the government and Eskom to waste it on this manner is a tragedy. Sadly, the cost of this wastage will be borne by ordinary South African households and businesses. This will have the effect of raising electricity prices again, and unnecessarily so. An increase in electricity prices raised inflation, leading to higher food prices and higher costs of producing goods and services. The resultant high food prices will plunge the poorest among us into even deeper levels of poverty. The increased cost of production will render South African companies' prices uncompetitive in their markets. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of it. You've got the gist here. Now, this guy, I just want to give you his credentials. Mtunzi Eiletuli, the CEO of Economic Interventions Forum of South Africa. Those are the guys that I've read that other things for you. They are the people that gave Mantashe the information to stick to his guns on this green bullshit. Cyril is driving the green plan. And you have to ask yourself, what the hell is he gaining from it? Mantashe refused to sign that document with that European. And Cyril is the mooring about that. And Cyril's handlers is the mooring about that. And what do you know? And then the Sunday Times. Mbalula backs CR against Gwede. Now, I can go lyrical about Mbalula. That man is the guy that fucked our railways up in totality. And I'm not going to entertain you with images of railway stations stripped to bare bones, railway lines stripped out, all of that. You have seen that. As far as I'm concerned, Mbalula is an idiot. But Mbalula backs CR against Gwede. They want Gwede out now, because Gwede has blocked that green shit, and Cyril cannot tolerate that. So, I'm going to conclude this now. I think you've got enough information to make you understand why I have said from the beginning the load shedding is politically manipulated to manipulate us. And it's clear now, Cyril and Key is making a shitload of money with no advantage and benefit to us, but us, the taxpayers, will have to pay those loans back. So, on this point, Gwede Mantashe needs our support. Us, the public, must support Mantashe. Forget the fact that he is in the ANC. Forget that. He needs our support because he's standing between us and the XXX cabal plans for us. That is where Gwede is standing. And he needs our support. I've read to you those documents of those IFSA guys. They are supporting him 100%, and as Mr. X told me, they have managed to change the views of a lot of the politicians already, including the EFF. So, I'm going to say it again. Gwede Mantashe needs our support, because the plans of the XXX is bad news for us. But we know they feel fuck all for people. For them it's all about money. So, this is a crazy time. I mean, it's almost 3:30 in the morning. But I just couldn't go to bed. I couldn't sleep. This thing blew my mind. And I had to share it with you. Please give me a like and share and subscribe. Thank you for your support.